Hi everyone, this is Bailey Scott from One Code Camp and welcome to the part 2 of our Voting DApp, where we will create the front end of our Voting DApp and integrate our smart contract into it. Let's go.
So from our previous video, we have created our smart contract, we compiled it, we deploy it, and lastly, we verified it, and it all took place here inside the hard hat folder. And that's basically the backend part of our Voting DApp. And for this video, we're going to integrate all of that to our front end or the user end. And for that, we're going to focus more on this front end folder, which is the folder where we're going to create or add all our front end files. So I just close the hard hat folder so that we can focus more on the front end. Now to add the 3 major files that we're going to need for our front end, I'm just going to click this front end folder here until I see that the arrow here is pointing downwards. And I'm going to create this or click this one to create a new file. Now the 3 files that we're going to need are the HTML, CSS, and the JavaScript files. And to begin, I'm going to add first the framework of our app, which will be the HTML file. And I'm going to name that index.html. Now, since we already have the framework or the baseline of our application, we want that to be appealing to our user. So to make it beautiful and to stylize our website, we're going to create the second file. And I'm going to name that style.css. There it goes. Now, since our application already got its framework and we can make it beautiful, we're going to stylize it. The last file that I'm going to add is the JavaScript file. And I'm going to name that script.js. There it goes. Now this script.js or this JavaScript file will make our application or our Voting DApp interactive and responsive. Now let's begin with doing our index.html. First, we're going to use a boilerplate, and to use our boilerplate, just key in exclamation mark or shift 1, then hit enter or tab, and now we have our boilerplate. Then we're going to change the title into Voting DApp or Voting DApp. There. Then we're going to link our style.css to our HTML. To do that, we're going to use the link tag and give it a relationship called style sheet. There. Then it's going to have a type of text/CSS. And then its reference or href would be the CSS file name, which is style.css. There it goes. Then we're going to close it. There. Then the next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to import our Ethers library. And to do that, we're going to open a browser here, then search for Ethers docs. There, and go to docs.ethers.org. Then on the search bar, just key in cdn and then hit enter. Go to this one. Then what we're going to copy here is this. Just highlight and copy. Then minimize our browser and paste it here. Just going to make this as one line. There it goes, and save. So we're done linking our style.css to our HTML, and also we added or imported this Ethers library. Now let's go ahead and establish the body of our HTML. Now inside this body tag, I'm gonna have an application bar, and I'm just gonna add a div tag here, there. And this div tag, I'm gonna give it an ID of connect MetaMask. So this is some kind of a nav bar or a header. And then the content, which is also a div, and I'm gonna give it an ID of voting station. There. And lastly, I'm gonna add the script or link our script.js here using this line of code. There it goes. Then the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add another divisions inside the connect MetaMask and also to the voting station. Now let me just take a quick add up for this live preview. I'm just gonna Control S to save, then open the live server. There it goes. So as you can see, it doesn't have any content yet since we're just setting up our HTML file. There it goes. So I just created a split screen for this one so that we could check from time to time the changes done after every adding some elements here. Now in the connect MetaMask, I'm gonna add a p tag, and this p tag, I'm gonna give it an ID of connect wallet message. There, and inside of this, I'm just gonna add please connect your MetaMask wallet to vote. There it goes. And as you can see, it's reflected here on the side. Then after that, I'm gonna add a button. So it's gonna be let me just key in button, and then give it an ID of connect wallet. And this would have a text of connect wallet. There it goes. So that's it. That's our connect MetaMask. Let me just rename this. There it goes. Next would be the voting station. Now inside this voting station, I'm gonna add a division called timer, and I'm gonna give it an ID of timer. Now inside this timer, I'm gonna add just a quick message. So I'm gonna use p tag with an ID of timer message there, and I'm just gonna add like 1, 2, 3 seconds left there, and I'm gonna enclose this 1, 2, 3 inside a span and give it an ID of time. There it goes. Just gonna cut that, paste it here. There it goes. So this would show up how many seconds left. There it goes. Yeah. And then under the timer, I'm also gonna add another division with an ID of main board. This will display the main board or the list of candidates. So let's say I'm gonna have a table there with an ID of candidate board. So this table will show the list of all candidates together with their ID there. And then I'm gonna create a row using tr or table row tag. And then it's gonna have a heading. Then the first heading would be ID number. The second would be their candidate name. So I'm just gonna put their candidates, or candidate. Then I'm gonna add another row. I'm gonna add 3 rows just like this, and I'm gonna have it a data td instead of heading th or header. I'm just gonna use td as in table data. Then the ID number, let's say it starts with 0. Then it's gonna have a name of candidate 1 or candidate 0, just like that. And I'm just gonna repeat that 2 more times there. So this one would be candidate 1 with an ID of 1. This would be 2 for candidate 2, and then I'm gonna control S. So we have a table. Now after that, I'm gonna add another division outside the main board. So it's gonna be a division tag with an ID of vote form. So this will be the vote form as its name. Then of course a form should have a few instructions. So I'm gonna add a p tag. Please select the ID of the candidate you would like to vote. That's it. And then I'm gonna add a label to encapsulate the input tag and the button. So inside the label, there's an input tag, and it's gonna accept only numbers. So I'm gonna use type number. There, remove the extra quotation mark. Then it's gonna have an ID called vote or named vote. And then let's close it. Then it's gonna have a button with an ID of send vote. It's also gonna have a text called send vote. There it goes, control S, and here's our vote form. Don't worry, we're gonna stylize this using our CSS later, so let's just leave it as it is. Now after the vote form, what I'm thinking is I'm gonna have another division, and this division is called, or it has an ID of show result container. So I'm gonna add a button inside this division and give it an ID of show result there, and it's gonna have a text of show result. Control S there, and then of course another division for the result division, and I'm gonna have it an ID of result. That's it. So if you click the show result button from the show result container, the show result should appear, and since this is the result, I'm just gonna copy this whole table, because it's the result, so it's gonna show another table showing the candidates and their number of votes. So yeah, we're just gonna add some things in here. Now for the table ID, we're gonna change that. We cannot have 2 tags or any elements that has the same ID. So we're gonna change to this one. So I'll name this result board instead of candidate board. Then I'm gonna add another column or header or heading, and it's gonna be the number of votes. Of course, since we add another column here, we're gonna add another here also. Let's say it's still TD, then vote count. We're gonna change that later on. This is just for reference. We're gonna delete that later on as we create our script.js. We're just gonna comment this out. Then here also, there it goes. Just gonna control save. So if we click the show result, this should show up, giving the ID number or showing the ID number, the candidate's name, and then their number of votes. Then the next division I'm thinking of, since we have an owner function there, that only we have functions from our contract that only the owner can create. So there's gonna be a division called, or with an ID called admin. There. Now in this admin, I'm gonna create a p tag first, and I'm gonna give it a name of, or an ID of admin heading. So I'm just gonna type in comelec only, or you can choose owner only, something like that. Just a heading for the admin tool or admin division. Then inside this admin, I'm also gonna add another division. Then I'm gonna name it or give it an ID of tools, because this will be the admin's tool or the functions that the admin can use. Now this tool has two functions. First is the start election. So I'm gonna create another division and give it an ID of start election. Now inside this div, the admin or the owner can create an election. So this would be another form, and the second form is also another division there, and give it an ID of add candidate, because we have that function written on our smart contract. Now to give a form for each of this, let's start with start election first. Now this should have an instruction, so I'm gonna add a p tag with an ID of start election message there. Then it's gonna have a text of start election, just to inform that this function or this tool is to start an election. And then we're gonna add an input box or an input tag. It's gonna ask for a text input. I'm gonna give it an ID of candidates, since we're gonna need a lot of candidates there. And I'm gonna add a placeholder, or before I put a placeholder, let me just show you what this it shows like without the placeholder. Control S there. So you can see this is blank, but if we put a placeholder there, and gonna give it like names separated by comma, because we're gonna ask for a list of name here since we're gonna start an election. And if we control S this one, as you can see, there's a placeholder here. It's not selectable, it's just showing something. Then we're gonna add another one, since on our start election function from our contract, we need two parameters or arguments. First one is the list of candidates. The second one would be the election duration, right? So we're gonna add another more input, and it's gonna ask for a number, and we're gonna give it an ID of election duration there. And also we're gonna place another placeholder for this one, and the placeholder would be duration in minutes, so that the user will be reminded that the duration he or she is setting is in minutes there. And then last, we're gonna close this one, and last but not least, we need the button with an ID of start and election. There it goes. And this one should have a text of start election, just like that. And when we control S here or save this one, there it goes. So we're gonna add a list of names separated by comma, a number for the duration in minutes. Then if we click the start election, the values from these two inputs should be sent to our contract, and that will be done using our script.js. Now let's continue with our HTML. The last tool that we're gonna add some framework or tags is the add candidate. Now just like the start election, we're gonna add a p tag, and I'm gonna give it an ID of add candidate message there, add a candidate. Then an input tag, we just need one. It's gonna ask for a text or a string there, and I'm gonna add an ID to this and call it candidate, since I only need one, can only add one at the time. Then I'm gonna give it a placeholder also, and just indicate that we just need a candidate name. There it goes. Then let's close the input tag, then add the button with an ID of add the candidate. Then we're gonna add a text to this button, add candidate. There it goes. As you can see, we're done now with our HTML file. Now the next would be our style.css. So before we proceed, just Control S to save, and as you can see, this is done, but it's not pleasing to the eye and it's not in place. So we're gonna stylize that using our style.css. Now for our CSS file, since it would really take us some time, I'm just gonna share a link. You can find it on the description below. Just paste it on your browser, and then just copy this whole code. Just click on this, Control A, then Control C, copy, and inside your style.css, just paste it here, and there it goes. And this just basically adds the design or the style to our HTML file. And now when I hit save this, as you can see on the Voting DApp, it's already placed in here. Now, if I actually put a display none, so this, for example, this one, we're just gonna add a comment here, like change to none. Now, if I put this voting station into block, it should show something like this. Now it's already changed. As you can see, here's the time left, and then the list of candidates and their IDs, and of course the vote form. That's it. Now let me just show you the rest. Just gonna copy this one and find some of the display that I chose to become none here. Can change it to select here. So you can see there's a show result there, and for this one, for the result, so that you could see the entirety of the display. There it goes. And what's more, let's check. Guess that's it. Now, since we haven't logged in yet to show the admin, it's just showing up something like this. So if we can, since we don't have functions for connect wallet yet, it wouldn't do anything. So let's add functions to this. Now, if you click this, your wallet will be connected. It will read if you're the admin or not. Then you can vote. And that's it. So let me just get it back, set it all back to the default. I'm just gonna copy this one again. Control A from the CSS file, delete it all, and paste the original one. And we're done with our CSS. Now let's go ahead and proceed with modifying our script or the JavaScript. So in our JavaScript, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add the selectors to select or target specific HTML elements from our HTML page so that we can manipulate each one of them or add an event listener to specific elements. And to begin, or to start with that, I'm going to declare a variable and save those HTML or target those HTML and put it on those on this variable. So I'm going to add, we're going to declare a variable instead. So I'll use const. Then the variable name would be connect wallet message. And this, I will store the connect wallet message, which is this one here. So I'm gonna store this tag or target this tag here, this line 12. This p tag here, I'm gonna target that and save it to this variable called connect wallet message. So to do that, I'm gonna use document dot query selector to select the element there, and I'm gonna add its ID name called connect wallet message. So if you do query selector and you want to target a specific ID, you start with a pound sign or hashtag. And if it's a class name, you start with a dot. So since this is an ID name, I'm going to use pound or hashtag. Then end this with a semicolon there. Then the next variable I would like to declare would be the connect wallet button. And what I'm going to store here is the targeted element. So I'm going to use document.query selector there. And I'm going to assign here the connect wallet element, or this one here, connect wallet ID. So I assigned the button to connect wallet button. That's it, and with semicolon. Then next, same thing, voting station. So I'm just gonna call the voting station ID, the HTML with the ID of voting station. So use document.query selector and add the ID of voting station so that I can manipulate the voting station division. Control S. So that I can manipulate this one. I could make it show or hide or change its styling. That's all. Then the next I'm going to declare is the timer time. I'm just going to save timer time, and I'm going to target this one, this time. So it has an ID of time, then hashtag time or pound time. That's it. Then, of course, if I called out the timer time, I'm also going to call out the timer message. There. Then use document.query selector again. I'm gonna target this one. Go back to script, add a pound or hashtag. That's it. Then I'm gonna target also the main board. I'm just gonna use this camel case and document.query selector. Of course, the main board. And that's it. Okay, so we have the timer, main board. Next would be the vote form. So const vote form is equals to document.query selector the vote form. That's it, which is this one, vote form. Then I'm going to target this also and this one. To do that, I'm gonna create a variable called vote. So I'll declare it a constant variable with the name of vote, and then I'm going to target and save the element with an ID of vote to that variable. don't forget to enclose this one with a single quotation mark. There. Save. Then I'm gonna declare another and call it vote button so that I can target it and add an event listener to it later so that if it's clicked, it's gonna do something. So I'm gonna use again the document.query selector. There. I'm gonna add the element with or target the element with an ID of send vote. There it goes. So far so good. Then next thing I'm gonna add is of course the show result container, since we need to show and hide that division. So I'm just gonna name it show result container. That's it. Just copy this one from the index of here. Just gonna copy that. It's equals to document dot query selector. There it goes. Show result container. Then of course we're gonna target the show result button so that same thing we can add an event listener to it. So I'm just gonna name it show result there, and it's gonna be targeted using this command document.query selector to select the element with an ID of show result. That's it. Save. Don't forget to save. Then I'm gonna declare what's the next variable. Let's check. We need to target this result, and yeah, that's it. I'm just gonna target this one first. Then I think I'm gonna target this also up until here, the buttons and inputs here. So we're almost done. So I'm gonna name that also result and target it using the document.query selector. Gonna add the ID of result, and there. Next would be admin. So I'm just gonna declare const admin is equals to document.query selector and target or select the HTML element with the ID of admin. That's it. Then we need to target this input with a typo graphical error here, so it should be candidates. Just gonna copy that. So I'm gonna declare that same name, const candidates is equals to document.query selector, then candidates. Let's verify if we have no error here or typographical errors. Connect MetaMask, connect wallet. There it goes. Okay, everything seems to be good. Yeah, let's continue. Then we need this election duration. So I'm just gonna copy this one, and let me just save. So I'm gonna copy that. Go to scripts.js. I'm gonna add again const election duration is equals to document.query selector to select the HTML with an ID of election duration. Just that. Then I think we need 3 more. This one, start an election. So const start an election is equals to document.query selector to select the HTML element with an ID of start an election. Then the last 2, this one, candidate, the input, so we get the value of it. We can target that element, const candidate. I'm just still gonna name it candidate there, and document.query selector to select the element with an ID of candidate. Then lastly, the last button that we need to add an event listener is the add the candidate button here. So const add the candidate is equals to document.query selector to select the HTML element with the add the candidate ID. There it goes. So we're done selecting or targeting all the HTML elements that we need to modify or read later on. The next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to add or configure our Ether so that we can connect our smart contract to our front end. Now to integrate our smart contract to our front end, we're gonna add this following code. So let's declare a variable. I'm just gonna comment out first in here. I'm gonna add a comment and call it configuring ethers so that we could use ethers there. So I'm gonna declare first a variable through const and give it a name contract address. Now this contract address, remember from our hard hat folder. Let's go back to that. I had you all copy the console log contract address. Now let's go back to its scripts, deploy the JS. Here, I just found it here, the contract address deployed, this one. So I'm just gonna copy this, and let me just go back to the scripts.js there, and there, just paste it, and assign it to the contract address. There it goes, and end it with a, and before we end that with a semicolon, remember to enclose this contract address into a quotation mark or double quotation mark just to make it a string. There it goes. Now the next thing that we're going to add is another variable, declare it const. Then it's going to be, or it's going to have a name of contract ABI. Now this ABI is similar to API but on the blockchain. And to get that, let's go back to our hard hat folder here and go to artifacts folder, go to contract, go to voting.json. And if you scroll, you will see here ABI. Just copy. I'm just going to minimize this one. So what you're going to copy in this ABI is from the starting of this bracket, opening bracket, up until to the closing bracket. Then just copy that, Control C. I just highlighted that. And let me just go back to the scripts and then paste it here. So you can see it's very long, so I'm going to minimize that. There it goes. And let me just minimize this one. Yeah, I'm just going to close this voting.json and the deploy.js since we won't be needing it anymore, since we already got our contract address and our contract ABI. Then I'm going to hit enter to add another line, then Control S to save. That's it. Next is we're going to declare another variable called provider. There. And we're going to use the ethers now from the library we imported in our HTML from this CDN here. Yeah. Then to do that, provider is equals to new ethers.providers.web3 provider. Then we're going to select the network that we prefer. So it's window.ethereum and assign the network that we preferred by using its chain ID. As you can see, we used 80001. And if you check chainlist.org and search for Mumbai, you will see that its chain ID here. Let's include testnet and search for Mumbai. Here, the chain ID is here. It's 80001. So 8001. So we just use this 8001. But if you have, or if you want to use other networks, just make sure to know their chain ID. So since we're using Mumbai, I'm just gonna put there 8001. And then I'm just gonna close this for a while since we need it later on once we're done with our JS. So I'm just gonna minimize that and maximize this. Okay. So getting back, after we set the provider, we're gonna get the first account or active account to the wallet or to the MetaMask. And to do that, just do this code provider. Let's send. It's gonna send an ETH request accounts there, comma, an empty array. And once it's done sending a request, we're gonna use then. Now inside this then function, we're gonna create an arrow function. And inside that function, the logic would be provider.list accounts, so that it would get all the list or all the accounts inside a list or inside that list accounts. Yeah. And then once it's done getting all the accounts, it's gonna perform the then function. Now, so once you get the list of accounts or the list accounts, then it would execute this arrow function. Now this arrow function would get the an accounts argument parameter. So it will go on to everything and we'll save it to the word accounts. And we're gonna assign the signer as the provider dot get signer accounts 0. So since we are using a list of accounts, we need to get the first one or the active one, which is the index 0 from the accounts here. Then we're gonna set the contract is equals to new ethers dot contract. Now this contract function requires 3 parameters. The first is the contract address here, and then the contract ABI. So it needs these parameters respectively. So you you should not interchange these variables. So it's contract address, contract ABI, and lastly the signer. So if you're wondering where did we get these signer and contract, there, it's basically we haven't assigned it yet. So let's assign it at the top. So let contract and then let signer. There it goes. So we just declared an empty variable. We used let because this could be changeable. And after declaring an empty variable, we just assign it after we connect to the wallet. So basically that's it. Now let's go ahead and create functions so that the buttons would work. Okay, so I'm just gonna add a comment functions, and then from this line and down, we're gonna create all the necessary functions for our voting DApp. So the first function that I think I would like to add is the get all candidates. So I'm gonna declare a variable called get all candidate. So this is just not a plain variable, but it's a variable stored function. So I'm gonna create an async function So this get all candidates variable is actually an async function there, so that I could use await later on, because if we get all the candidates, we need to read something on the blockchain, and if we read something on the blockchain, it takes time for the transaction, so we need to wait for it before we load anything. Okay, so yeah, first is I'm gonna add a restriction or a requirement. So if document dot get element by ID, so if the candidate board is existing there, it just simply means like that. So if the candidate board is existing, or is it there or present inside the HTML file, or is it just basically present, then I need to remove that. So document that get element by ID, just gonna copy this one there, then I'm just gonna remove that by using the remove function. That's it. So after removing the candidate board so that it would not duplicate, I'm gonna set another variable called board, and I'm gonna assign it a function, or this logic, document.create element. So if I create an element, it's gonna be stored as the board. So document.create element, and that element would be a table. So I'm just gonna create a table using the create element function and store it to the variable board. Then on that board, I'm gonna give it, or that board, I'm gonna give that an ID of candidate board, just like that. Then I'm gonna append that board to the main board by using this code, main board dot append child. I spelled it incorrectly. There it goes, append child. Then add or append the board. Basically, that's it. Then I'm gonna create another element and call it table header. So that would be a table row. So document dot create element. Then I'm gonna create a table row. So dr. There it goes. And that table header, I'm gonna add an inner HTML to it, and I'm just gonna use the template laterals, then do this one. So th id, or I'm just gonna copy from the index.html, this one here. Just gonna copy that, since this is the candidate board. Let me remove that, paste it there, and there it goes. Just gonna, okay, so just like that. And then I'm going to append this to the board. So board dot append, and append it as a child. So what I'm gonna append there as a child is this table header, and that's it. Then from this on, I'm gonna create a variable called candidates. So I use that so that this candidates is just inside this get all candidates. Now I'm gonna use the function await and use the contract function, contract that retrieve votes. So where did I get this retrieve votes function? If you can still remember, let me go back to our hard hat folder and show it up to you. If we go back to our contract here, let me just, there. If we go back to our voting.saw, as you can see, let me just search, retrieve, there. So you can see, we have a retrieve votes function, and to call onto that, we need to sign contract.retrieve votes. Now this contract is from here. So when we connect our wallet and everything, it would store the contract address here. It would search back to this one and get the function retrieve votes. Just like that. So we need to wait for that before it would execute the next line, because if we don't put await, if this is executed, even though it's still loading, it will still continue and it will cause an error. That's why we need to put an await. So yeah, after it's done loading, getting all the retrieve votes and saving it to the candidates variable, then we're going to use a for loop so that we could get all the details. So for that, let I is equals to 0, where I is less than the candidates dot length increment. Now for every I on the candidates array or list, I'm gonna create another variable, let candidate there, and it's gonna be a document dot create element, and that element would be a table row. Why? Just like this, so that we can append, for every candidate we're gonna append something like this. So I'm gonna copy this one and assign it to, so for every candidate I'm gonna add an inner HTML to that. So this candidate will have an inner HTML, use the literals, then paste it there. So it's gonna have something like that. Now we don't want it to show something like this, it's hard-coded, right? So we're gonna change this one to its ID, and to get that we will use this $sign, then open and close curly braces. We're gonna get the candidates I, then 0. Where did I get the I and the 0? As you can see in here, if we retrieve the votes, it's gonna return what? There, it's gonna return this struct, and this struct it shows something like this. So it's index 0, index 1, and then index 2. So to get the ID, it's index 0. To get the name, it's index 1. That's why we use it in here. So candidate, since it's an array, so candidate 1 with, and get its ID, it's index 0. If we change it to 1, it's going to get the candidate's name. If we change this to 2, we're going to get the number of votes, just like that. And since this is a UN256, so this is a very big number, we need to convert this one. Just use parse int to convert it into an integer. That's it. And then for the candidate's name, we're going to change that to just like this one. Okay. Yeah. So, candidates I1. Just like that. And then close with the curly braces. And we have our candidate.inner HTML set to that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to append that to the board, of course. So here to the board, just like this one. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. Oh, we have too many spaces. But instead of table header, we're going to append this candidate. And that's it. So for every candidate, it's going to append another row with the following details. So basically, we're done with getting all the candidates. Now, the next function I'm thinking is to get the result. So let's declare const get result is equals to async. We're also going to use a synchronous function here because we need the await function. There it goes. Now we're going to add a logic inside this get result function and control save. Now inside this get result function, I'm going to add this line of code, result.style.display is equals to flex. This is to change the CSS property of our result. This should not be computed, so it should be style. Just like that. Result.style.display is equals to flex. This will change the result. What result? This result here. So it would just show up instead of the none earlier. Just like that. So if the get result button is pushed, this get result function will be executed. And after that, after it shows the result division, it needs something. Let's need a condition. So if comment.get element by ID. So if result board or the element with the result board ID is existing, then we need to remove that so that we can avoid duplication of tables. So let's just use the .remove function, and there it goes. Next would be we're gonna declare another variable, let result board. There, same thing. We're gonna create a new element. It's a table element. So let's use document.create element there, and that element will be a table. That's it. And after creating that, we're gonna give it an ID, result board.id. It's gonna be a result board, just like that. So after giving it an ID, we're gonna append it to the result. So it's gonna be result.append child, and the child that we're gonna append is the result board, of course. There it goes. And then for that result board, we're gonna create another variable called table header, and it's gonna be there. I'm gonna use create element again, and that element or that variable is gonna be a tr or table row element, and that table header is gonna have an inner HTML. We're gonna assign an inner HTML for that element, and we're gonna use template literals. Then it should be the same as this one. Let's go back to our index.html. Here, just gonna copy this since this is the header or the heading that I need. So I'm just gonna highlight and copy it, and then paste it here, just like that. I'm just gonna add some tabbing here, just to make it look clean. There it goes. And put a semicolon to end the line, and then next thing I'm gonna do is I'm of course gonna append this to the result board or the table. Yeah, the result table. So append child. The child that I'm gonna append is the table header, just like that. And save. I'm just gonna save or Control S from time to time. There it goes. Then the next thing that we're gonna do is, of course, we need to show that, right? So same thing here. I'm just gonna copy this code there and use a for loop so that we can get all the candidates. So we use the await function. That's why we need to set this get result as an asynchronous function. Then we use the contract, or we call on to the contract, and we use from the contract we use the retrieve votes function to get all the candidates. Now things that we're gonna change it in this for loop is the candidate.inner HTML, and also this one, because we don't want to append to the board again. We need to append to the result board. There, just copy and change this to result board. That's it. Now for this one, since it's missing the number of votes, we're gonna add more So I'm just gonna add a new line. So TD, of course, gonna close that. Now inside that TD tag, I'm gonna add the number of votes. So just like this, just gonna copy this one since it's also a uint. If you can still remember, let's check our voting song. See, it's a uint 56. We still need to convert that. So it's gonna be, and something like this, parse in candidates I, and the index, it's not 0, it's index 0, 1, 2, so it's index 2. Should be index 2. That's it, and then Control S to save. There it goes. We're done with our get result, I believe so. Let me just review for a bit. Candidate. We have set this one, then append that candidate to the result port. I guess we're done with the get result. The next function that we're going to add for this voting DApp is the refresh page, because we need the time remaining for the voting. Yeah, so we need a refresh page, and we're going to make it as a function. We're just going to call on to, from the voting song, this election timer function. There. This one. Just gonna call into this. So to do that, inside this function, I'm gonna create, or I'm gonna set an interval. So set interval. Now this set interval, it needs two parameters. First is the function, then the seconds or the milliseconds of its repetition. So I'm gonna choose 10 seconds. So for every 10 seconds, it will execute this first parameter, which is the function. So 10 milliseconds is, 10 seconds is equals to 10,000 milliseconds. Now for the function, I'm gonna make it as an async function, async arrow function, like that. And inside this async arrow function, I'm gonna declare a time. Let time is equals to await contract.election timer, because we're gonna call into that election timer. And that's it. So let time is equals to await contract.election timer. Then if time is greater than 0, means that the election is still ongoing. So the timer message dot inner HTML should have a text of, I'm just gonna copy this one and edit it. So it's just gonna change with time. There it goes. Here. I'm just gonna copy the inside of this and paste it here. So there's stand time, and we're not gonna change its value later on. So just wait. So instead of 1, 2, 3 or hard coded, we're gonna add the value time. We're gonna add the result from the election timer. So it's the time. That's why we get the time here. Then I'm gonna keep it that way. So it's gonna be seconds left, or I'm gonna put something like that. Okay, second or seconds left. Period. So that's it. And then the vote form, that style, that display. So its display is, so since the election is still ongoing, the vote form should be showing up. So I'm gonna set its display into flex. It's CSS display as flex. And then for the show result container, since the election is still ongoing, it should stay as none. So it should not be displayed for an element of surprise, so that you cannot see the result while the election is ongoing. So yeah, basically that's it. And if time is equal to 0 or less than 0, which is unlikely, we don't get a negative number from here. We just convert it into 0 if it's already less than 0. So yeah, so if it reaches 0, then the timer message would be changed. So we're gonna change its text content there, and we're gonna set it to either there's no election yet, or the election already ended, because the election is not ongoing anymore. I guess that's it. And then if the election is done, of course, or there's no election anymore, so the vote form should not be visible. So I'm going to change its CSS display into none. And then for the show result, since the election is done, we are now free to get the result or show the result. So show result container dot style dot display. We're going to set it to block. Basically, that's it. We're going to end our set interval function with a semicolon. That's it. Now the second one I'm going to set interval is to get all the candidates, so that it would refresh for every second or every 10 seconds. So for this one, for the time, this should not be per 10 seconds. This should be for 1 second only. So it's 1000 millisecond. Now we're just going to refresh for all candidates for every 10 seconds. So to do that, just again set interval. Let's create an async function there. And the second parameter, of course, the time. So it's going to be repeated every 10 seconds or 10,000 milliseconds. And we're just going to we're just going to call onto the get all candidates. Just like that. we're just gonna call onto that get all candidates function. And let's put a semicolon to end that one. And we're done with our refresh page. So the next function I'm thinking to add is the vote function. So it's gonna be send vote. So I just declared it using cons and giving it a variable name, send vote, and assign a function to it, an asynchronous function, so async function, there. And here. And inside this send votes, it's just basically we're gonna use the contract vote function. So await. Let's call onto the contract and call the vote to function. Now from our voting.sol or from our contract, vote to function here. So in our vote to function, we need one parameter, and it's the ID of the candidate that we would like to vote. So in this one, we're gonna add we're gonna pass on the vote.value. Where is this vote.value? It comes from here. So from the vote ID, from the input. So we get the value of this input field and pass it to the vote to function from our contract using this one line of code. And then after sending it, we're gonna clear the value of that input. So it's just gonna be vote.value is equals to empty string. That's it. And then control save. Now the next function I'm thinking to add up to our voting tab is of course the function to start election. So const start election is equals to async function. It's also gonna be an asynchronous function. Now I'm gonna add some restrictions or requirements. So if the candidate's value, or this one, candidate's value here. So if this input field is empty, that's what this first line is showing. So if candidate's value is an empty string, then it's gonna alert the user that the list of candidates is empty, just like that. And then we're gonna add more. So if same thing, if the election duration dot value is empty, then it's gonna alert the user that to please set the election duration. So neither of the fields should be left empty, or else it would not proceed. So after giving all those restrictions, I'm gonna declare a new candidate or a new variable called _candidates, and I'm gonna assign the value from the candidates.value. And those values, since it's a string, I'm gonna split it. I'm gonna use the functions .split, and the string should be split with commas. So if the string, for example, is A, B, C, it's going to be an array of A, B, C. So it will convert our string into an array, just like this. Or for example, B, D, C, E, F, something like that. So it's gonna be like P, D, C, E, F, just like that. So it would just split our string into a list or an array. Then I'm gonna declare another variable called _voting duration there, and I'm gonna assign the value from election duration dot value. So that one, it's from here, this one. And then after that, we forgot the semicolon here, there, control save. Now we're gonna call the contract. So await contract dot, we will use this one, start election function. And that start election function requires two parameters, the candidates and the voting duration. So we're gonna pass these. So contract.start election. Two variables needs to be passed. First is the list of candidates in an array, then the voting duration. So we're just gonna use that one, candidates. Let's pass on the candidates first, and then the voting duration. And that's it. And then after it's done processing the start election for the blockchain, we're going to refresh the page. So let's go on refresh page. And then we're going to clear out the value of our candidates and election duration input elements. So to do that, candidates dot value is set to an empty string. Oh, there. Then for the election duration, the same thing. We're going to set its value to an empty string. That's it. Then we're going to change of course, we're going to set the vote form to be visible. So it's going to be vote form dot style dot display and set that to flex. That's it. And then we're gonna hide the show result now, since the election is started, or the election has been started. So show result container dot style dot display, it's gonna be equal to none, so that it could be hidden. And there we go, we're done with the start election function. Next would be the function to add candidates. So this should be done only during election. So it's still gonna be an asynchronous function because you need to transact on the blockchain. There. Now for this add candidate function, I'm gonna add just one restriction. So if the candidate input value is empty, then it should alert the user that, or to please provide the candidate name first. You cannot just automatically add a candidate without giving its name. So yeah, just like that. And then after it provides the name, it's gonna call onto the contract and use its add candidate function. Let's check. Voter status. Where's the add candidate function again? Here, the add candidate, it takes one parameter, the name of the candidate, and it automatically adds the candidate's ID number. So let's go back to the scripts.js there. So add candidate, let's pass on the candidate's name. So candidate dot value, that's the one that we're going to pass. And then we're going to refresh the page after it's done processing. And after that, we're going to clear on the candidate value. So candidate dot value is equals to an empty string. And that's it. Okay, so we're done with the add candidate function. The next function I'm thinking of is now for connecting our account. So this add candidate, this function will be executed if the add candidate function or button would be clicked. And for the start election button. So yeah, the next thing that we're going to add function is what if the connect wallet is pressed or clicked, then it's going to execute this function, the get account function. Of course, to get the account and to set it as the user. So to do that, I declared a constant variable named get account, and it's going to be an asynchronous function since we need to connect to the blockchain or transact with the blockchain. It takes time. We're going to use the await. So still, I'm going to declare a variable called ETH accounts. Now this ETH accounts, we're going to use the await function to get the provider to make the provider send an ETH request for the account. So it's going to be ETH request accounts. There. And then after it gets all the accounts, we use the function then, an arrow function will be executed. Now inside that function, signer will be assigned as the provider dot get signer from the first account showing up or the active account, which is accounts 0. That's it. So signer is equals to provider dot get signer, and that signer should be the account with index 0 or the currently active account or currently selected account. Then we're gonna set the contract as new ethers.contract so that we could get the contract or connect to the contract. So again, the three major parameters: the contract address. No, not capital C. It's small letter C. Contract address there. Then followed by contract ABI, and lastly the signer. That's it. Then saved. Oh no, not there. So here, and also this one. So let's just check. Oh yeah, I think I missed something. Yeah, before this one, I'm just gonna cut this. So inside this function, this get function, yeah, I'm just gonna cut that. So in the then, we first need to get the list of accounts after getting or sending request to get the account. So after getting or sending the request to account, we can get the list of account by doing this provider dot list accounts first. And once we get all the list of accounts, then an arrow function will be executed. So for every count, there, an arrow function. Now inside that arrow function was the function we did earlier. So that's it. I think it's good now. Okay. Yeah, I think it's all good now. So after that, we're gonna assign or gonna set the connect wallet button text content. So we're just gonna change that from please or connect wallet method. Let me just show you. I'm just gonna control save. Let's go to the index.html. Let's open its live server. Let me just here. So this button, if I click this, then this should change into the shorter version of the user's wallet address. So to do that, we need to go to the scripts. Index.html. Let's go to scripts.js, go back and change the buttons text content. Now connect wallet button text content would be, of course, designer dot address. Now since it's very long, we're gonna slice it and we're just gonna get the text or the character from index 0 to 10. And then we're gonna add a 3 dots there. Next is we're gonna change the connect wallet message. We're gonna change its text content. There. Let me just recheck the spelling. Yeah, there it goes. So the text content for the wallet message, it's gonna be you are currently connected. That's it. Just to make sure that, or just to let the user know that his or her wallet is already connected. Now after that, we're gonna disable the wallet button so that it would not be clicked again after we're done connecting. Disable this equals to true. Another typo there. So the connect wallet button that disabled, it's gonna be set to true. Now let's check if the user or the one who logged in or connect his or her wallet is actually the owner. And to do that, we're gonna add some requirements. So let's declare first let owner is going to be the, from our contract, we're gonna call the value of this variable. Where is it? Here, this one. This variable. What is the value of this? And to get that, let owner is equals to await contract dot owner. That's it. And then let's do a comparison. So if the owner is this, if the owner's address is the same with the signer's address or the user's address, then the admin division or the admin tab should be displayed. So admin that style that display should be equals to flex so that it could be visible. That's it. And if not, then it's not displayed. It still remains as none. So the voting station that style that display will be of course will be displayed regardless of the user being the owner or not. The voting station should be displayed because it's hidden first, right? So if we connect the button, check it out again here. So if we can click this button, of course the voting station should show up here, giving the list of the candidates and the voting form. That's it. And then after that, we need to get the time. So let time is equals to await contract.election timer. Just need to set the time. Then if time is equals to 0, for this, we're just gonna check the election period. Contract.election or check election period. There. So we're gonna add that also if the user is the admin. Okay, so we're also gonna move this one here. And there it goes. So we're done with that. And lastly, we're gonna refresh the page. So refresh page. And just to make sure, we're gonna call all the candidates. So get all candidates. And that's it. We're done with all the functions. Now we need to add the event listeners. Now before we add the event listeners, I just noticed there's a typographical error here. So there should be signer. That's it. Here the election timer. Gonna get it from here. So let's just check here. I'm just gonna copy this one and go back to script. There it goes. And after that, yeah, it's just highlighting because we searched for it here. So now ready to add the add event listeners. I'm just gonna comment here, add event listeners. That's it. Now the event listeners I would like to add is, of course, to add a listener to a specific HTML element. So I'll start with the connect wallet button. So if this connect wallet button, so do that add event listener there. Now it takes two parameters. First is the activity that you would like to listen, and then the function that it will execute once the it was triggered by this listener. So the listener would be click. So if this connect wallet button is clicked, then it will execute this function. So the function that I want to be executed once the connect wallet button is clicked is to execute get account. So it's just like that, get account. Then I would like the show result button. So it's just show result. I'm gonna add an event listener. So if this is clicked, then it would execute the get result function. Just like that. Then for the vote button, if it's clicked, then it's gonna send the vote. Then for the add the candidate button, you're gonna add event listener there. That if it's clicked, then it's gonna execute the add candidate function there. And lastly, the start an election button. I'm gonna add an event listener to that. That once it's clicked there, then it would execute the start election function. There it goes. We're done with our JavaScript. We're done adding the selectors or targeting the HTML elements. Then configuring the ethers, adding the functions, and lastly adding the add event listeners. Now let's go ahead and check our site. Go to index.html. Okay, let's just go back to the script again. I think I mistyped something. Yeah, it is here. So it's not window, it's actual window.ethereum. Here it goes. Now let me just Control S to save. Go back to index.html. Right click, then open with live server. Now, as you can see here, we have now our Voting DApp. Let's connect our wallet. And now it shows here, something like this. So MetaMask notification pops up. Just gonna hit confirm. There it goes. So there's no election yet. Now, as you can see, since I'm the owner, it's showing this, the admin or common like only, but let me just change my account here. I'm gonna change it to account 1. I'm just gonna connect it. And let me refresh it. Let me open it on my end. So this account is not the owner. As you can see, there's no admin here. So there's no election yet. If I show result, there's no result since there's no election yet. Now let's start an election. Let me go back to my account, which is the owner of this contract. And then let's refresh. There. So I'm just gonna add an election. So it asks for me to pay for gas fee just to check the election status. Now here, for the start election, I'm gonna add like Adam, Ben, and then Charlie. And for those are the candidates separated by comma. Then for the duration, I'm gonna set it to 30 minutes. And if I click start election, a pop-up would show up from MetaMask to pay for the gas fee. Wait for it to load. And it's just gonna refresh from this to here. So wait for it since it's still being transacted. There it goes. Wait for it to show there. So we have the ID number 012, then the candidate's name, Adam, Ben, and Charlie. So if I would like to vote, actually I can vote. So even though I'm the owner, I can vote. So if I click add the ID number, click send vote, this should show up. And click confirm. Then I already set my vote. Then you can add more functionalities to this, but I'm just gonna keep it this way. And if I'm gonna add a new candidate, so I'm gonna add Ether. Wait for this to load, confirm. Now it may take some time for it to transact on the blockchain, and once it's done transacting, it will reflect here. So let's wait for it. So as you can see, it's refreshing from time to time. There it goes. So the Ether is added to the candidate. Now let me just change my account here and refresh this. Connect wallet. There it goes. So I can vote. So I'm gonna vote for Charlie to send vote. Wait for this to load. And then I can vote. So there you have it. We just successfully created our Voting DApp from smart contract to the front end. Hope you enjoyed doing this project with us and hope to see you more on our upcoming playlists and upcoming tutorials. Thank you.